In an industry stuffed with marketing bullshit, empty promises, and shiny-suited liars, one woman's had enough. She knows what it's like to have the wrong clients, no money, and no time for fun. But she also knows how to fix it. And on the Business for Superheroes show, she promises to tell the down and dirty truth about business, sales, and running away with the circus. Here's your host, Vicky Fraser.
Well, welcome to the first Business for Superheroes podcast. I'm Vicky Fraser and I'm here today with Joe Fraser, who is also my husband.
Hello.
Okay, so the best way to get over the awkwardness of the first podcast, I think, is to just grab it by the throat and get on with it. So, this is going to get easier as I go on. I'll become more comfortable as we go on. So I'm afraid you're just going to have to be okay with this initial awkwardness. In all honesty, I wasn't really sure how to start this podcast series. So I'm really going to just start at the beginning. Right at the beginning, when I first started this business. Do you remember the first days, Joe, when I rang you up from my car in tears and just said, I've quit my job?
Yeah, I was at the climbing wall with a couple of mates, and you phoned me up, and I knew you were having a tough time at work. I knew you didn't like your boss very much, and you just phoned me up and said, I've told him to stick it up his arse. And I thought, right, okay, that's fine. And you were really stressed about it, weren't you?
Yeah, totally stressed, because I had nothing to go to at all. I have a bit of a history of doing this kind of thing. I'm really totally unemployable. But the early days when I first started my business, I was very, very lucky because a lovely guy in an agency asked me if I'd ever fancied doing any freelance work and just threw some work at me, which was awesome. But in the midst of all that, my method of getting new customers was basically to hope someone turned up or to hope that I got a recommendation. And I did get a few recommendations. But it was quite stressful, wasn't it, at the beginning? It was quite scary.
And I remember thinking, well, look for a job and take all the freelancing stuff that comes your way. And it was a bit worrying because the freelancing stuff, and there were those websites, weren't there, those content mills that you used, and every now and again you'd get a little job, yeah. And it cost nearly, you got paid nearly nothing, but people liked you and they kept coming back, and then you'd do more work for no money.
Yeah, and I remember being really excited as well every time I got a new client, and that's exactly the way it should be, by the way. I'm totally not belittling anybody who's in this position at the moment, because God, I've been there and done that. But yeah, you're right, it was just, I remember working on people per hour, and I got a couple of vaguely decent jobs out of that right at the beginning, or what I thought was decent back then. And a kind of transcription company. They would basically get crazy translations straight from the Korean or Hungarian or whatever, and it would kind of be in, Google Translate English, and it had come to me to make it into something marketable, and that was quite fun for a while. But it was really difficult because they just paid horrible money, and I just remember working, until 2-3 in the morning sometimes, wasn't it, on just dreadful paid jobs.
Yeah, and it would be like lists of technical features of a photocopier or something.
Yes, you can remember it better than I can.
And it was just like, what on earth is this? And why are you up at 2 a.m? And why are they paying you £100 to do this? It was crazy.
It was crazy. And at the time, I really, really didn't know any better. But there does come a point there came a point for me where I just decided that enough was enough. This is really hard work for not an awful lot of return, and it was swapping time for money, and there's only so much of that you can do. And yes, I'm still swapping time for money, and you'll find out all about that, but I'm doing other stuff as well, which is what I would like to share with you. So anyway, all that aside, this podcast is really for any small business owner. But I obviously have a particular affinity for freelance copywriters because I am a freelance copywriter, or I am a copywriter. I don't use the word freelance for reasons that will become apparent as you listen to this more. Also for, other creative professionals, so designers and translators and editors and all the rest of it. And many of us really struggle, particularly at the beginning, because we tend to be very good at what we do, but we're utterly crap at selling ourselves. Because whilst you can be honest now, if you're listening to me, are you really making as much bacon as you would like to be? Or, in my case, avocados, because I'm middle class and vegetarian. But, are you really making as much money as you want? Are your clients really the upper echelons of clients who pay you, top dollar on time and they're a pleasure to work with, and they don't question your every punctuation mark and why have you used this word and not that word? If you are getting those clients, then, stick around for sure, but you're already set. If you're not getting those clients, which I suspect you're not, then you're where I was a few years ago. A reasonable copywriter or whatever it is that you do, but an utterly shocking marketer. And I want to basically share with you what I've been through over the past few years.
All of the painful, ugly detail of the hard work and the long hours.
Yeah.
And the not enough money and the crap clients.
Yeah. And, in amongst the crap clients way back then, there were some great ones. And, I'm eternally grateful and always will be grateful to Mike, the guy who first got me started in this. Because he, without him, I wouldn't be doing this. And, I've moved on now, but yeah, without that break, I wouldn't be doing it. But I did quickly realise that I needed to be working with better clients than I was working with, people who had the money and the know-how to pay me. So the very first thing I did, and this is good advice for everybody, the very first thing I did was set about really learning how to do copywriting well, because there's an awful lot of copywriters out there who are decent writers, but they don't understand copywriting. They don't understand how to sell. And that sounds kind of ironic because I said that, I couldn't sell, but a lot of people find it very difficult to sell themselves, and that's a confidence thing. But yeah, the first thing to do is get really, really good at what you do. Really good at what you do, and, study all the time. I study every day. Everything I read is kind of studying, isn't it? Apart from, I've always got 3 books on the go. And Joe gets really, really frustrated because right now there's a pile of, 20 books by the side of the sofa?
20 books by the side of the sofa, 3 or 4 on the coffee table, another 4 or 5 at the other end of the sofa, the chest of the shelves under which are snake clips. There's a pile next to it.
Anyway, my point is always be studying, always be learning, always be getting better at what you do, because unless you've got an amazing product, then neither I nor anybody else nor the best marketing in the world can help you. So what I want to talk about today is marketing. This podcast, like everything else I do, will be, full of truths and empty of bullshit. And if you don't, and I'm quite blunt about stuff. And if you don't like it, you can always use the off button. That's fine. But today I am here to talk about marketing, why it's not a dirty word. And because I want to help business owners, especially freelancers, grow their business, increase their prices, work with better quality clients, stop swapping time for money, and stopping having what really amounts to just another shit job. Because if you're not careful, this business that you started because you love what you do can very quickly turn into a shit job. And for me, it did. A few months after I started, after the initial excitement faded, it just was a bit of a grind, really, because it never stops.
It was long hours for not much money and stressful.
Yeah, really stressful. So how do we do this? How do we make more money, have more time off, enjoy life, and generally, be funner to be around, really? And, how do you say, you know what, I'm going to take my husband to Iceland for a long weekend for his 40th birthday, because, which we've literally just come back from, because I can. How do I have Wednesdays off? Well, I don't have Wednesdays off, but I don't do any client work on Wednesdays. That's all my own marketing work. And the reason I can do that is because I stopped worrying about all sorts of things, but what I really did was used the dirty little process that nobody really wants to talk about because it conjures up images of shiny suited, brill cream haired liars, used car salesmen and the like, but you really need to get comfortable with marketing yourself and selling. And creative types are particularly bad for this. They seem to think that, a lot of business owners seem to think that if you build a better mousetrap, people will just buy it. And that's bollocks. Just because you've got a good product, it does not mean it's going to sell. You have to go out there and sell it. And nobody likes to talk about doing that. And the difference between a successful and an unsuccessful business is effective, and that means profitable marketing. So, everything I'm going to talk about here is my own experience with a few outside anecdotes and interviews with other people and blah, blah, blah. But, starting with marketing this week, really going back to basics. And I'm going to start by saying that most marketing out there is ineffective. In fact, most marketing out there is utterly shit. And it's a real shame because there are some amazing small businesses out there doing really awesome stuff, and they're really struggling when they don't need to be. I don't really know why that is, but I think used car salesmen have a lot to answer for with that. And I think actually one of the biggest problems is, I'll demonstrate it by asking Joe, what industry are you in?
I'm in the manufacturing inspection industry.
No, you're not in the manufacturing and inspection industry. You are in the marketing of the manufacturing and inspection industry. Because if you can't sell what you do, you can't do what you do. So, and I'm exaggerating a bit here. Joe really knows the answer to that question and he's playing along with me because he's nice like that. But, if you're a photographer, you're not in the photography industry. You're in the marketing of photography industry. I'm not a copywriter. I'm not a marketer, in fact. I'm in the marketing of marketing industry, which means I'm going to shortly disappear down a meta wormhole or something. But, the point is, whatever industry you're in the marketing of that industry. And that's the first big thing that you really need to get your head around. And a lot of people have a bit of trouble with that. It's a mindset thing. Start thinking of yourself as a marketer, because that's what you are. If you want to do what you do, you better get good at it or get someone else to do a good job for you. So I want to start with the definition of marketing. The CIM, the Chartered Institute of Marketing, which, has a lot going for it and is,
a fine institute.
A fine institution. It defines marketing as the management process responsible for identifying, anticipating and satisfying customer requirements profitably. What a load of jargony bollocks. No wonder people hate, fear and misunderstand marketing, because what it actually is, and Drayton Bird, the great Drayton Bird, gave me this definition a long time ago. He defined marketing as find out what people want and need and give it to them. That's it. Because, marketing is about finding out what people's problems are and solving them. That's the bottom line. So, in your industry, Joe, people's problems are, shitloads of money lost because loads of wastage, for example, in a factory full of stuff.
Yeah, they think they're making a car with a sunroof, and it turns out they've made a car without a sunroof, or they've made a few, thousands of bottles of pop that have got the wrong lid on them, or they're printing the wrong best before end date on the label, and it all just gets crushed, chopped up, and put back in the pot. And start again. Costs them thousands. To the tune of thousands, hundreds of thousands if it goes on for too long. So, that's the problem that Joe is solving. And in fact, he's not even solving a wastage problem. He's solving a massive profit problem. And deeper than that, he's solving, looking stupid in front of your boss problems. But that's getting into emotions, and we'll go into that another day. But, going back to marketing, I think another big misconception about marketing is the medium that you're in. In the end, marketing is marketing is marketing. As long as you're selling to actual human beings, the fundamentals of marketing will always be the same. It doesn't matter whether you are on using direct mail. It doesn't matter whether you're emailing people. It doesn't matter whether you're on telly, radio, or, fucking about on social media. Marketing is marketing is marketing. No matter what the medium is, whatever the latest bright, shiny object is, whatever some internet marketing guru comes out with, the principles are always the same, because selling is about people and psychology, and people never change. Not really, not fundamentally. And our brains all work in just about the same way, and any differences are really of style and not substance. So I would like to ask you a question, and I'd like you to answer it honestly. Is your marketing bringing you in results? Do you know if your marketing is bringing you in results? Because if the answer to that question is that you don't know, then you need to stop doing it right now. Because if you don't know if your marketing is working and you can't measure it, then you might as well just set fire to your money. And so the whole point of this is that we're going to do marketing that you can measure, that you can test, and that you can find out whether or not it's working. And the stuff that isn't working, you stop doing, and the stuff that is working, you do more of. And that's a very good reason, by the way, why marketing budgets are a stupid idea. Because why would you set an upper limit at how much you're going to spend on something that's bringing you in a shitload of money? So, I also want to talk about awareness marketing and how that's a waste of time for 99% of businesses, including yours. If you're Coca-Cola, or if you're Apple, or if you're, IBM, then you can afford to spend millions and millions of pounds on billboard ads saying, we're Apple, we're Virgin, we're great. But if you're a small business, that's not going to work for you, because people aren't going to know who you are. What I'm talking about is direct response marketing. And I think that's what a lot of small businesses don't understand. And I think they look at what the big boys are doing, like Coca-Cola. They look at the awareness marketing and they think, this is what I'm supposed to do. This is what I need to do because this is what Coca-Cola's doing, and Coca-Cola's like the richest company in the world. But they're seeing the results of what Coca-Cola have done for many, many years. They're not seeing what Coca-Cola did when they first started up their business. Which I guess was finding people who were thirsty and selling them a drink. Yeah, exactly. Finding people who are thirsty and like sugar. And selling them a drink. But yeah, exactly. I mean, Gary Halbert put it best. Gary Halbert, if you're a copywriter, you've probably heard of him. If you're not a copywriter,
go and look up some of his stuff, because Gary Halbert was basically the world's greatest copywriter. He's dead now, unfortunately. But he said all he ever needed was a starving crowd. You know, you could give everybody else all of the advantages, but if he was selling hamburgers and competing with a whole bunch of other people, all he would want is a starving crowd. So essentially what I'm talking about is finding your starving crowd and selling them your shit. It really is. It really is as simple as that. And of course, there's a whole bunch of other stuff we can go into, but the bottom line is find your starving crowd and give them what they want, because there's a starving crowd out there for everybody. Anyway, back to direct response marketing. I said that you need to be able to test and measure everything that you do, and that's true. Every single thing that we do in direct response marketing is all about getting a response from the customer or the prospect that we can measure. It's not about engagement or getting out there or brand identity or any of that crap. It's not about getting likes on Facebook, because I don't know about you, but my bank manager doesn't accept likes. It's a bit of an ego trip, and that's all. It's about selling more of your product and service to more people more often at a higher price and giving great value, and that should go without saying, really. So, you know, actually, with that, I've got another hard truth for you here. Just because your product or service is good doesn't mean it'll sell. You've got to sell it. And, you know, the world is littered with great ideas and products that never took off, because people, you know, like I said earlier, people bought into the myth of the better mousetrap. And it's just sad, really. It's sad. There's some really good ideas out there, and, you know, they're not getting out there. And loads of business owners, you know, they do think that their product should sell itself. And I was like that right at the beginning, and I still kind of am. And, you know, Joe's company is to a certain extent because everybody is to a certain extent. I think, oh, we've got this great thing, and, you know, people should buy it. And you see it all the time. And you see it in people's advertising as well. They'll put an advert out there that, you know, that says, you know, buy my stuff, but they don't give you any reason. Don't give you any reason to buy that stuff. It's just, you know, it's just buy my stuff. So the second that you start thinking that you're somehow above all of this, you know, dirty marketing stuff, you're absolutely doomed. You've got to sell your stuff, because nobody's going to do it for you. And if you don't sell it, nobody's going to buy it, and then your business will fold, and you'll have to go back to getting a horrible job and be scraping along 9 to 5 and be moaning about the weather and the commute and the blah, 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 blah.
Going to work on wet Wednesdays and doing what you're told.
Yeah, doing what you're told, working for idiots. And now, you know, if you know...
I feel a bit affronted.
And, you know, the only idiot I'm working for now is myself, and it's awesome. So here's the thing. The bottom line is your business lives and dies on the strength of its marketing. Ultimately, the only way to tell if it's working is to measure the sales coming in from what you do, and that means direct response marketing. It doesn't mean awareness marketing. It doesn't mean, you know, saying, oh, this is really good, it's really exciting. You know, I really like, you know, look at my stuff, this is me. It means selling it, and it means convincing people that, you know, they need what you want, or they want what you have. It all comes down to relationships, really, because the real profits are in the long-term relationships. You can't just walk up to somebody and offer them your stuff and expect them to buy it, because unless you're selling ice lollies to somebody in the desert who's dying of thirst, that's generally not going to happen. My mentor, Peter, always describes it as the difference between coffee and sex. So, you know, when you first meet somebody, it's perfectly acceptable to ask them to go for a coffee. So, you know, Joe, would you like to go for a coffee with me?
Yeah, yes, I would.
Yes, I would. And, you know, if Joe was a stranger, that would be perfectly acceptable. If I've just met Joe and I go up to him and say, Joe, fancy some sex? What would your answer be? Actually, don't answer that, because you're just...
I'd be somewhat surprised.
Yeah, somewhat surprised is probably a reasonable way to put it. But, you know, there's a relationship gradient between which, you know, that you're going to start at one end with, let's go for a coffee, and the other end with, you know, bedroom gymnastics, and a whole bunch of stuff in the middle. And, you know, when you first meet somebody, when you first point your marketing at them, you got to start with the coffee. Got to start with the coffee and build the relationship from there. When you start with the sex, you're going for the short-term immediate sales, and you're going to lose most of them. And it's really hard work, and it's an expensive way to do it. And, you know, when you're short on cash, I understand that it's tempting to go for the quick sale. I really do. But it leads to discounts, which are dangerous. And I'll explain why in another episode. And it just leads to you pimping yourself out to whoever's out there. And that's not what, well, it's certainly not what I'm about. And it's not, I don't think, what you're about either, because I think that you want better quality clients who are going to pay you more. They're going to pay you more often. They're going to pay you on time, and they're going to be a pleasure to work with. And you ain't going to get that 99% of the time. You ain't going to get that by jumping in for the immediate quick sale. The profits are in the long-term relationships. I've got 2 clients on retainer. One, we've just gone past just gone past our first year anniversary, actually. And, I've made half of my turnover from that client in the last few months. I've got another long-term client who, I'm going to make 6 figures from this year because they're great clients, because I've had a relationship with them for that long. It's been fantastic. I mean, Joe, what your longest term clients, they're worth more to you than the ones that you just come across, right?
Oh, yeah. We put sales effort into finding the people and finding people with the need, and they come to us with their problems, and then we solve a little problem for them. And typically, I'm thinking of a particular customer now. We put a little thing in their factory that solves a little problem, and then they come back to us with the next problem, and then the next problem, and the next problem. The problems gradually get bigger, and then they ask for a thing that joins all of the systems together, and suddenly we're talking, a 3-year project that's a couple of million quid, and we that's where the money comes from. Fixing the little problem, doing the small thing initially was nice, and it got us in the door, and it got them thinking about us, and it allowed us to demonstrate our competence. But the long-term relationship has been much more profitable than doing lots of those little jobs would have been.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you ain't going to get a £2 million payoff from somebody that you've just met. You're just not. It's
just too risky. People with that money are not prepared to spend it on someone they don't know.
No. And it's all about building up that relationship. Start small and you build it up. Yes, it takes longer, but my God, it's worth it in the end. Really, really is. So, speaking of discounts and why I said they were dangerous, I'm gonna talk a little bit about those next week, because they can absolutely destroy your business. Because although I'm a copywriter, it's, what I'm talking about here is it's not all about the actual nuts and bolts of marketing. I really want to help you understand why I and other successful business owners do things the way I do. And I also want to build your confidence at the same time to do the same. And talking about discounts next week is a really good way to start doing that. So on that note, I'll leave you with a couple of takeaways this week. First of all, get your head around the fact that you are not a photographer / writer / engineer. You are a marketer. First and foremost, you're a marketer, because if you can't sell your shit, you can't do your shit. Second of all, I want you to stop doing whatever you're doing if you can't measure it and you don't know it's working, because otherwise you might as well set fire to your money. If you don't know it's working, stop doing it. And that's a scary thing to do, because if it's the only thing that you're doing, then, it's a scary thing to do. But I really, really strongly advise you to stop it. Just stop it if you can't measure it and you don't know if it's working. And thirdly, I'd really like you to tune in next week, because I'm going to explain to you why discounts are just incredibly dangerous and they can destroy your business. So thanks very much for listening. I've been Vicky. And
I've been Joe.
And we'll see you next week.
Like what you've just heard? Tell your colleagues, tell your friends, send them to www.businessforsuperheroes.com/podcast.